Ideally speaking, I would just want to sit here and collectively meditate. But given that we have a convention, I'm going to follow that. And as you might have noticed from the announcement that I sent out, it is well known that Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri was an incredible philosopher. He founded these two wonderful institutions, the Cultural Integration Fellowship and the California Institute of Integral Studies. But what was the driving force behind all this? This is something which is not widely known. It is known to some people for sure. And very recently, I came across some of the letters that Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri wrote to the Mother of Sri Aurobindo ashram. And I must say that a whole world of my appreciation for the fellowship and for the California Institute of Integral Studies.
Oh, the one on the right.
Developed for me. I could see that there was this wonderful combination of bhakti, karma, and jnana yogas in Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri. And as I said earlier, I don't need to talk about his jnana yoga. We all know about that. We all know the finer nuances in which he has discussed philosophy and psychology of his times. What about karma and bhakti? From his letters, what I receive is that he was a profound devotee of the Mother. And intermittently, he asked her for divine realization. There's an intermittent call that is going from her to the Divine Mother for divine realization. And therefore, today I would want to begin our conversation with excerpts of a letter that he wrote to the Mother on 10th of August 1949. This is a couple of years before he came to the United States. In fact, if I go through this letter, he did not even know that he was going to come to the United States. That aspect developed much later, and I'll go into those as well. So he writes, kindly help me, Mother, in realizing God soonest possible, and in mounting myself into a fit instrument of your divine work. I feel that the day of your final victory over the forces of inconscience is in fact drawing near. Now, all of us who are familiar with integral yoga, it is all about transformation within and transformation without. And what is the transformation that we are seeking? We are seeking transformation of inconscience, which is within us and which is outside of us. All the problems that we encounter within the world and the ones that we encounter within ourselves are basically product of inconscience, and we have discussed this earlier also, inconscience incidentally is nothing but involved divine. Divine which has completely inverted itself and has hidden itself in profound and complete darkness. And it is from inconscience that the divine consciousness is gradually evolving. And this is the process of evolution that Sri Aurobindo and the Mother have spoken about. We also know that Mother and Sri Aurobindo at this time period were doing yoga for the descent of supramental. And when he writes that, the victory over forces of inconscience is drawing near, he basically meant, or rather, he was referring to the descent of supramental, which happened in 1956. Later, I'll go through another letter of his where he talks about the descent. Now he comes to his work that he was engaged in at that point in time. He says, I am now engaged in another piece of research work. It is in the nature of a synthetic approach to some basic philosophic problems. I wish to have your blessings in my new undertaking. And then in this letter, he also talks about Rita, as many of you would know, has just passed away. And we are going to have a memorial service for her on Saturday, on 17th of June. So he says, my daughter Rita has been suffering from remittent fever in the last 8 days. Kindly extend your protection and blessings. Now this is something, again, very important, from the perspective of the mystical world. And I think we need to emphasize this over and over again, that there are many forces in nature that are not accessible to us through the normal faculty that we have, or rather through the normal faculties that we have. But once these faculties get refined and purified, which is mostly the yoga is all about, we come in contact with them and we are able to see their workings as well. And given mystics are known to have divine realization, they not only see these forces, but they are also able to work with these forces. And mystics who are particularly aligned with the dynamic nature of reality are able to use these forces for curative purposes as well. And people who are open to the Mother with regards to this and have sought her protection and blessings in matters of the cure of diseases will be able to validate and vouch for this, that when you seek from the bottom of your heart, the response comes. And the Mother, many times in her conversations, emphasized this. One of the many ways she says is that all that we need to do is to basically silence our mind, remove the murmurs in our beings, remove the various vibrations that are occurring in our being, and in a place of complete surrender and openness, seek the intervention. Once again, there is a reason why I am bringing this into our conversation. We know about this intellectually. But given the kind of world that we live in, world where identity and ego have become very important, I feel that we need to remind ourselves over and over again that we need to become truly humble in presence of the divine and seek the intervention for the divine work that we are doing. And this is what Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri is seeking in this particular letter that was written in the August of 1949. I have another letter. This is undated, but I'm pretty much sure that this is after the previous one. For he says that the work that he was engaged in earlier has been completed. He writes, "On 14th September last, I submitted another thesis entitled A Synthetic Approach to Some Basic Problems of Philosophy for the highest degree of doctorate of the Calcutta University. The thesis is a critical discussion of some fundamental philosophical problems from the standpoint of Sri Aurobindo's integral monism. Please let me have your blessings in full in regard to this endeavor of mine." This work, later in India, was published as The Philosophy of Integralism, and I believe here in the United States much later became Being Evolution, and there's one more word I'm forgetting. Pardon me. Maybe, after the talk I will pull out the book and show it to you. Now, there's something very interesting in 1950 that happens, and this is a letter from 14th December. He writes, "Mother, the shock of the unexpected news has roused me into a deeper sense of responsibility and a fulfilling of the need for more vigorous action. I wish to have your blessings in full measure. In consonance with the recommendation of Sri Aurobindo, the Stanford University, California, has invited me to join the American Institute of Asian Studies as professor of Aurobindo's philosophy. It is a matter of great pride for me that the Guru recommended my name." He is writing that that his name was recommended by Sri Aurobindo himself, and he's thanking the mother for this. "I now look up to you for your direction and your command. Kindly let me have it by return of post." So here it's not about the invisible reciprocation, but what he's saying is that he wants the reciprocation through post. "I may have to reach San Francisco by March 1st, 1951. Before leaving India, I shall surely go to Pondicherry to see you and have the inspiring touch of your hand. Please accept my pranams. And then there's more. My book entitled Sri Aurobindo, the Prophet of Life Divine, which I have dedicated to you, is now in the ashram press. It will be good if the book can be brought out by the middle of February 1951. I have written to Sri Nalini Gupta, was the secretary of the ashram, also to this effect. I hope that there will not be much difficulty if you so desire. So this book, The Prophet of the Life Divine, is dedicated to the mother. And in fact, that dedication is there in the American edition as well.
Yes, Jake.
Now, there was also something very interesting that was going on around this period. Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri, around 1950s, was teaching at Presidency College in Calcutta, which even today is one of the best colleges in India. And he was due for promotion. But unfortunately, what happened was that he was given promotion, but he was transferred to a different college outside of Calcutta. And this was causing a lot of problems to him and also to the family. So he talks about this with the mother. And I'm going to read to you the contents of this letter, which certainly was written before 14th of December 1950. This was in fact written on 25th February 1949. So he says, Mother, I am faced with a great difficulty. There was a vacancy in the Presidency College, Calcutta, in the next higher grade of our service. Dr. S.M. Dutt, the DPI, strongly recommended my case for this post. And Dr. A.H. Sen, the Education Secretary, has turned down that recommendation in favor of a favorite of his own who is inferior to me in qualification, and has transferred me, albeit on promotion, to Krishnagar College. Now I have made a representation to the government for a sympathetic consideration of my difficulties in leaving Calcutta at present and for placing me at any Calcutta college. Could you kindly let me have your blessings in the matter? My spiritual pursuit will suffer a great deal. So the way I see it is that the Mother and Sri Aurobindo foresaw that he would be encountering one too many difficulties in the educational system in India. And of course, he was very qualified. So basically, they sent him out. And he came to San Francisco in 1951. And from all the letters that he has written from here to the mother, you will see that he was doing nothing but basically her work. Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri, the devotee, and the philosopher, trying to be a very good instrument of the Divine Mother and doing her work. This was basically what Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri was. He writes, Dear Mother, it is your and Sri Aurobindo's blessings that sustain me in my work here. Just as support and encouragement come from unexpected quarters, opposition and attack also come from unexpected sources. You have heard, I'm sure, a good deal about our work here and also about the American Academy from Judith Tyberg and also from Stephanie, who is now at the ashram. And by ashram he means Sri Aurobindo Ashram in Pondicherry. Mr. Gainsborough is still an enigma to me. And as you know, many of you would know, Gainsborough was the individual who was the founder of the American Academy of Asian Studies. Gainsborough says somewhere that one day he had this inspiration, in that he thought that Christianity and various schools of Christianity is basically Eastern in nature. But the religion in the West has cut off its roots from its Eastern sources. And because he wanted to reconnect Christianity and its various schools to its Eastern sources, that he decided to bring the American Academy of Asian Studies into fruition. You know, there are many people who say that it was his business inclinations that were involved in this decision. I'm not disputing that. You know, it is highly possible that that also may have played a role. But in terms of, you know, his own words, this is what we get from Gainsborough. So, just to give you a little bit of history, Gainsborough established this institution and then got hold of Frederick Spiegelberg to put together the Department of Asian Philosophy. And it was Frederick Spiegelberg who got into correspondence with Sri Aurobindo and had Dr. Chaudhuri's name recommended to him. That's how Dr. Chaudhuri came to the academy. Dr. Chaudhuri writes, Mr. Gainsborough is still an enigma to me. You know, there's a reason why I'm reading these letters to you. Look at the minute details of his correspondence with the mother. It almost feels as if, you know, he is talking to his own mother. This is not an elevated being on a pedestal sitting way up there, you know, with whom only spiritual matters are getting discussed. Certainly not. He's speaking to her about mundane matters, day-to-day mundane matters, things that were affecting him, things, you know, that was affecting the work here. So he says, Mr. Gainsborough is still an enigma to me. Contradictory forces seem to be at work in him. Shrewd business mentality is to be seen mingled with nobility of purpose. At the beginning, his invitation to Dilip was wholehearted. You know, Dilip was another disciple of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo, was considered quite advanced actually. But later on, he seemed to stand back. He is now unwilling to take care of his transportation. His attitude seems to be that of his invitation to Dilip and Indira is a kind of personal favor to be done to Dr. Spiegelberg, Judith, and me. He has given transportation to other professors invited from the Orient, so I wonder why he should not do the same in regard to Dilip. Then this is about Judith Tyberg, who was the founder of the East-West Center in Los Angeles. She was also teaching at the academy at one point in time. He writes, Judith was made to resign from the faculty of the academy in a very high-handed manner. It is true that she had some fault, but that might have been dealt with in a milder and better way. Mr. Gainsborough is now opposed to my giving any course at the Academy on Sri Aurobindo's philosophy. So I have now to do the master's work there indirectly. I introduce Sri Aurobindo's philosophy in other courses that I give. So, the fundamental work for which he had been invited to the academy was denied to him after a point in time. But there were other doors that opened, and he is talking about those as well. He says, Rudolf Schaefer, the director of the Schaefer School of Design, has wholeheartedly accepted the ideal of Sri Aurobindo and is a good friend of mine. I am now living with my family in the private quarters of the Schaefer School. Beena and our daughters Rita and Shipra safely arrived here on July 29. Every Wednesday, I give lectures at this school on Indian art. And on the first Sunday of every month, I give lectures on integral yoga in the premises of the Schaefer School. This is the background of the Cultural Integration Fellowship. At San Jose, 60 miles from San Francisco, there has grown up a nice group of earnest followers of Sri Aurobindo. I address the group on Sri Aurobindo's philosophy and yoga on the first Saturday of every month. The next step that I am contemplating is to start a Sunday meditation group in the premises of the Schaefer School. I wish to have your blessings for that. I am very eager to know of the latest development in regard to Sri Aurobindo's International University. This was the university that the mother put in place at the ashram. The government of India has a documentary film on the Shanti Niketan International University, the university founded by Tagore, which I have shown several times to my students. I wish that we can soon have a film on the life and activity of Sri Aurobindo Ashram in Pondicherry. And then he makes a comment about the Americans. He says, Americans are extremely visually minded. A documentary film on the life and activity of Mahatma Gandhi is now going through a process of re-editing and reshaping in Hollywood. Mr. Gainsborough has joined one Mr. Chettiar from South India in sponsoring this Gandhi film. I think it will be soon for release. And then he talks about, Rita and Chipra. My older daughter, Rita, 6 years old, is now going to a public school here. And my younger one, Shipra, 2.5 is going to a nursery. Beena and I are quite well. Please accept my pronouns. And then he writes, any advice and suggestions which you may have to offer in regard to my future line of action here will be gratefully accepted. So, the background of the Cultural Integration Fellowship is getting built. But before the Cultural Integration Fellowship came into existence, Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri had established a center by the name of Sri Aurobindo Center. And he talks about the work that he was doing at the center. This is this letter from which I'm going to read now was written on 28 December 1954. He writes, Dear Mother, I don't always write to you, but you're constantly in my mind. I vividly feel the working of your power in my inner being. I'm repeating this. I vividly feel the working of your power in my inner being. Our American Academy is gradually drawing a greater number of students. I have now been accorded a secure position on the faculty of the Academy. And they are trying to obtain for me and my family visas for permanent residence in this country. The work of Sri Aurobindo Center in San Francisco is also going ahead very well. Every alternate Sunday, 8 p.m., we meet together for a discussion on some fundamental life problem, followed by a brief period of silent meditation. I presume that the contents of these conversations became part of mastering the problems of living. And that's what my presumption is. I'm not certain about it. Every Monday evening, 8 p.m., there's a special study class in which I am now discussing the Bhagavad Gita as interpreted by Sri Aurobindo. We may soon get a nice house of our own in order to carry on the work of the center in a more independent way. So the house that they got on 21st Street is what is being spoken about. We wish to have your blessings for the success of our efforts. Devotedly yours, Haridas. Now, there's one more letter, and after that, I will close and open it up for discussions. This is about the Cultural Integration Fellowship and the work that the fellowship was supposed to do or did in the years to come. And there's a particular piece of information which I think you will really love, which you will really love. This was written on 26th of April 1956. The supramental descent had already happened on 29th of February 1956. And Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri talks about this. He says, Beena and I are immensely delighted to get the wonderful news about your ultimate divine victory. It is an overwhelming experience to know that the supermind is now overtly operating in the physical, and that the visible effects of that action are soon going to be manifest in your bodily existence. All glory to you and to Sri Aurobindo. And then he begins to talk about, his work in 1956 here. It is amazing to see how the younger generation of students here are getting gradually interested in the message of Sri Aurobindo. The life divine is a topic of discussion in many circles of students. I always feel your power working within me, but I still need your full blessings for attaining direct spiritual realization. God realization never went away from his consciousness. Now here is something absolutely fabulous about the Cultural Integration Fellowship. He says, our Cultural Integration Fellowship has now been duly incorporated in California as a non-profit and non-sectarian educational and religious organization, which derives its inspiration from the all-harmonizing and all-integrating spiritual ideal of Sri Aurobindo. You would also want to remember that the fellowship had been established, but this building had not come into existence. That happened much later. And this also I see as the direct intervention of the Divine Mother. And you will see why. On acquiring this legal status, I should now formally obtain your permission in the matter of the use of Sri Aurobindo's symbol. The Cultural Integration Fellowship on its letterhead uses the symbol of Sri Aurobindo, and it has been granted to the fellowship by the Mother, as this letter quite conclusively shows. I should now formally obtain your permission in the matter of the use of Sri Aurobindo's symbol. Will it be all right if we continue to use this symbol on our letterheads? The reason why we wish to retain this symbol is that we wish to emphasize the fact that Sri Aurobindo's ideal of dynamic self-integration animates all our activities. So kindly let us know whether we have your permission in this matter. And then he writes further, I think I informed you before that a friend has helped us in buying a beautiful permanent home of our own in the warmest belt of San Francisco. And that we had moved to this new house last September 1955. It is the area which Catholic fathers selected when they came to San Francisco, and is therefore known as the mission district of many churches. Our classroom in this building can, however, accommodate not more than 35, at most 40 persons. On occasions, it is crowded to overflowing. On special occasions like Sri Aurobindo birth anniversary, we have to hold our meetings at the East-West Arts Gallery, where I formerly used to take my classes on Sri Aurobindo's philosophy. So our next plan is to buy a bigger house with a larger auditorium, as the number of our members grow. I wish to have your blessings in making CIF an effective center of dissemination of your and Sri Aurobindo's truth power and truth vision. Devotedly yours. It was soon after that this building was donated anonymously to the Cultural Integration Fellowship. So with this talk, I just wanted to bring another side of Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri and the fellowship, which is not, really known to a lot of people. I will have a follow-up talk, sometime in the future, because there are some more letters to be gone through. But I thought that, I should at least bring these facets and aspects into the public domain. So that we can see this side or shade of Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri, which is not ordinarily visible. So thank you very much for joining. It's about 11:46, and I'm pretty much sure that there will be questions and comments. So let's open up the floor. Margaret.
Yes, what struck me is the timing of your bringing this forward, Kundan, that as a community, we may be ready to see Dr. Chaudhuri in a more multidimensional way, and that maybe that's an indication that we're opening up different sides of the yoga within ourselves.
Yeah. And I also feel that these letters have been given to me for a purpose. Because before I became the president of the fellowship, I was not privy to these letters. So I think, this was a way to connect me in a much deeper way with Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri and have a complete understanding of what the fellowship actually stands for, and basically carry the torch forward. So, as far as I'm concerned, I see a divine design even in this. Yes, Michael.
Amazing comments. These are really worthy of publication at some point, and I wonder if there are responses from the mother to Haridas Chaudhuri, and if so, if you will bring them to us at some later date. Second, I was unaware that Haridas Chaudhuri was invited to become a professor of Sri Aurobindo's philosophy. I thought he had been invited to become a professor of Indian philosophy, but apparently it's more specific.
Mm-hmm.
And just thirdly, I was surprised by your comments that Gainsborough, early after the arrival of Haridas Chaudhuri, told Haridas Chaudhuri, no more courses on Sri Aurobindo. And when you said that, I said, I wonder why he did that.
Yeah. So let me begin responding, to your third question. See, Michael, the way I see it is that there's always this battle, which is going on between positive and negative forces, the mystics of different denominations, the real genuine ones, they are interested in transforming life on earth. And there are forces already present on earth that oppose that descent. And this is something, which has been going on for a very long period of time. And sometimes what happens is that even the best of people with the best of intentions become victims of these forces. They don't do things deliberately, so it's highly possible that Gainsborough was not doing this deliberately. But because of the possibilities, that this yoga carries in terms of individual and world transformation, maybe those forces, began using Gainsborough for obstructing the work. So it is highly possible that that was something which was going on in occult, as far as Gainsborough and Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri, are concerned. Now, in terms of the letters from the mother, yes, the mother used to respond, to Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri. Unfortunately, and this comes to me from Beena directly, they got eaten by moths, and that's how the letters got destroyed, unfortunately. So there's just one that survives, and we have framed it, and we have put it right next to the steps of the Cultural Integration Fellowship. So there was this conversation which was going on back and forth. And yes, he was invited to teach the philosophy of Sri Aurobindo by Gainsborough and Frederick Spiegelberg earlier, but that changed. And the legend has it that Frederick Spiegelberg, tried to teach the philosophy of Sri Aurobindo himself first, but he was not successful. And at that point in time, he sought help from Sri Aurobindo. And Sri Aurobindo recommended, his name to Frederick Spiegelberg. Yes, Roger. You're on mute. Please unmute yourself. Roger, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Kundan. I think it's an important presentation. And by the way, it's always good to see our friends from the East Coast, Bauman and Barbara. I want to say hello. And the thing that occurs to me as I hear these letters is it brings us back, for those of us that choose to see it this way, to the connection to the divine that the fellowship and the institute come from. And so much of my history and connection to Dr. Chaudhuri and Sri Aurobindo and the Mother's vision is my connection through the fellowship, but also very much at CIIS, where I spent many years. And through the years, the Institute is always struggling with this question of its connection to the original vision, to the work of Dr. Chaudhuri and Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. There's always a struggle, and the connection is stronger, and then it gets weaker, and new leadership comes in, and it's always an issue. And I think these letters are important in that it connects us to the divinity of the vision. And I think as the Institute grew over the years, I'm not glad it grew. I did my degrees in the psychology program, but as it branched off from the original kind of philosophical perspectives and spiritual perspectives, maybe things became a little bit more eclectic. There was always an attempt to stay connected to the vision, but it gets a little thinner as we're going into other disciplines, which made that connection difficult to maintain. And the connection to the divinity of the source hard to maintain. And so I think these letters are important in that sense. I mean, it's not a simple thing to integrate that into the consciousness of the entire community, but it's a step, it's a piece of that is important to a lot of us. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Roger. I think in my follow-up talk, I will talk about the distinction that Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri himself made between the fellowship and the institution which actually grew up later. And, the focus of these two institutions, incidentally, has been very different. The fellowship was always supposed to be more aligned, with the vision and mission of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Whereas the institution was supposed to be a philosophical institution. It's like where different kinds of philosophies are taught and many different kinds of things are done. So the way I see it is that even the mother, put together different organizations in Pondicherry with different visions and missions. For instance, there are 3 institutions in Pondicherry. You have Sri Aurobindo Society, you have Sri Aurobindo Ashram, and you have Auroville. And all these 3 institutions, have different foci. And the reason is because the constitution of people are different. And they seek divinity in different ways. So space has to be made, for different constitutions. And I personally feel that this integral component of integral philosophy was internalized by Dr. Haridas Chaudhuri in a beautiful manner. And that is also the reason, why you find him as an individual who's extremely plural and diverse with respect to the growth of consciousness. So and I think it would come out, as I was saying earlier, quite clearly in the letters that he wrote later, to the mother, that the vision and mission of the institution of what became CIIS, is very different from the vision and mission of the Cultural Integration Fellowship. I could not have, brought all the letters into conversation today, things would have become quite onerous. But thank you for your comments.